This is the brand new BMW M2 Competition, and it is the best BMW M car, or at least it is for me, because I like performance cars that are precisely this size and not too big and bloated and overpowered like a lot of M cars. Today I'm going to show you around this car and show you why it's my favorite. I've borrowed this M2 Competition from a friend of mine here in the Los Angeles area, and you can check him out on Instagram at MPowerLA or by clicking the link in the description below. This really is the ultimate M car. It takes the standard M2 and it adds the engine from the BMW M3, which brings power up from 365 horses to 405 in this car. It also adds 63 pound-feet of torque over the regular M2. 0 to 60 is in 4.1 seconds, and two transmissions are offered, a true 6-speed manual or a dual clutch automatic. But to me, the ultimate BMW M car is about more than just numbers. It's also about size and experience and driving feel. And let's talk about size for a second. This car to me is sized just right. It's only 5 inches longer than the original E30 BMW M3 from 30 years ago, and it's 6 inches shorter than the current BMW M3, which always seems to be growing. The BMW 1 Series M is my all-time favorite BMW M car, one of my all-time favorite cars, and this car continues that tradition. Not too big, not too powerful, but just right, and priced right too. This car starts at under $60,000, which is a pretty good deal considering what you get. So what do you get? Today I'm going to take you on a tour of the M2 Competition. I'm going to show you a few of the interesting quirks and features of the best BMW M car on sale. Then I'm going to get it out on the road and drive it, and then I'm going to give it a Doug score. Alright, I'm going to start the quirks and features of the M2 Competition with the exhaust note, which sounds quite nice, better than a regular M2. Take a listen. And with that out of the way, we can move on to the interior, where I'm going to show you a couple of interesting quirks and features, starting with some rather unusual buttons. The first one's to the left of the transmission lever. You have the 3 most important buttons in the car. They're in this little silver shroud to indicate how important they are. The top one, that controls the drive mode, going from Sport to Sport Plus to Efficient, and the bottom one, that's the steering, Sport, Sport Plus, and Comfort, and you can choose between them, important in a performance car. What about the middle button? It's blank. Doesn't do anything. Leave it to BMW to highlight 3 specific important buttons and then leave one of them blank. Now, to me, the weirdest thing about that is the fact that there are several buttons around that blank button that could have been where the blank button is. Like, for example, at the base of the shift lever, you have this button which has 3 lines on it. This will seem cryptic to just about everyone unless you've had a performance BMW before. That one changes shift time, and you can adjust whether you want fast shifting or slow shifting depending on how many lines you select. Very odd button. Of course, that could have been moved over to where the blank one is, but they didn't. Instead, that's at the base of the shift lever, and the blank one is blank. Now, next up, I want to move on to some of the cool interior touches in this car, which are all worth mentioning, starting with when you open the door sill says M2 Competition, not just M, but it highlights the specific ultra cool model that you got. Now, when you get inside, there are several more cool touches, starting with the stitching, this nice orange contrast stitching. You can see it on the seats, looks very good there. It's also on the door panel, this Alcantara panel, and on the armrest on the door panel, this nice orange stitching that gives you a sportier feel. And in my favorite spot, it's on the parking brake boot. Not too many cars even have a manual pull-it-up parking brake anymore, but this one does. And the parking brake boot is this nice stitched Alcantara. Very cool look. But we aren't done with the nice stitching yet. I also want to talk about the stitching on the steering wheel. I always mention this in M cars because I really love it. BMW cross-stitches the M colors from the M badge into the steering wheel. They could have just done orange or red, but instead they went with the M colors, and I just love that. It's a great piece of attention to detail. On this car, they also did it on the seat belt. It has just one little line running through it with all 3 M colors. And speaking of the seats and seat belts, this car also has another quirk that I absolutely love. The little M2 logo in the seats, you can see it there, at night with the lights on, that lights up. So when you're getting into your M2, you can be very sure it is in fact an M2 because The seats have a lighted logo that light up and tell you. But maybe the best M car touch in this vehicle is the dead pedal over in the footwell. Take a look at this thing. This is not your regular plastic or rubber coated dead pedal. Instead, it has these two curvy lines, and it says M at the bottom. It doesn't look like something where you should rest your foot. It almost looks like a plaque you get if you work for the M division and you win some sort of Employee of the Month award. I really like that M dead pedal. Now, with that said, there are a couple of touches in this car that are a little stranger, like for example, the red start-stop button. Regular BMW cars have a black start-stop button. This one has a red one because, you know, you're not really gonna go fast unless you press a red start-stop button instead of a black one. And another rather unusual touch in this car is on the seats. You can see the seats have these little dots in them, this like perforated styling component. And if you look at it from some angles, you can see that they're red on the inside. From other angles, it just looks like black dots. It is a very strange touch, but I guess it distinguishes this car a little bit from other BMWs. Now, on the outside, there aren't too many ways that the M2 Competition is distinguished from other BMWs, but there are a few. The wheels are unique to this car. The regular M2 uses a different, more common set of wheels, and so you can tell a competition with these wheels. It also has bigger brakes, and it uses the brake caliper from BMW's carbon ceramic brakes. It just isn't painted gold. Instead, you can see it's gray, but the bigger brakes and wheels will give away that you're next to a competition. And one other giveaway, it says M2 Competition on the trunk. You have to squint, look very closely unless you're right up next to it, but it does have one exterior M2 Competition badge, and that's the one on the trunk lid. As far as quirks and features under the hood, nothing particularly special under there, just a plastic engine cover that says M Power, and then going around the entire engine compartment, a nice carbon fiber smile, just like you'd expect from a BMW M car. All right, driving the M2 Competition. Now, first thing, I know some of you are going to be disappointed that this is an automatic. My friend who got it, he's got a bunch of Porsche GT cars, and he uses this as a daily driver in Los Angeles, and thus the automatic. Now, the first thing I noticed when I was kind of playing around with it to film the video before I drove it, the buttons and the switches and everything just are so sturdy. They remind me of BMWs from like back in the 80s and the 90s, where there was a focus more on craftsmanship than technology. I don't think it's necessarily unique to the competition, but it's nice to see that that's going on still in a BMW. It's kind of cool. The transmission is really fast, no surprise because it's a dual clutch. But boy, does this thing feel really, 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 really quick. You can just kind of throw it around. This is one of those cars where it's not so insanely expensive, $200,000, whatever, that you feel like you're gonna mess it up. So you feel like there's absolutely no concern with just kind of throwing it around and just going a little too fast, maybe around a corner, and letting in the car sort it out. Man, this thing is so much fun. This car reminds me of the first time I drove the 1 Series M. It was the same kind of experience. It was just like, oh, woo. It feels like a Cayman GT4 or something like that. It's just a lot of fun to toss around and turn and take corners a little too fast. You're not going over the speed limit even, but you're just going faster than you probably should be. You know, when the 1 Series M went away and they came out with the M2, I kind of thought the M2 would be the rightful successor to the 1M, but they made it in larger numbers and it just didn't have that same kind of special feel. And I think this is the car that really follows up on the 1M in a way that makes us all feel like, hey, this, you know, it's just as cool, it's just as little, it's just as tossable and fun and sporty and special. And I really like this thing. The car is as zippy and tossable and fun as like a Cayman GT4 or something like that, but you're not putting up with that really low body design, and you're not putting up with that really harsh ride. Now, I'm not going to tell you that the ride in this car is especially smooth and supple. This is no luxury car. It's a fast, fun... This thing is so fast. I would get into so much trouble with this car. It's just so tossable and exciting and enjoyable. Oh man. I want one of these. And so that's the BMW M2 Competition. The regular M2 is an amazing car, but this is a step up in every way. A little sharper, a little faster, a little rarer and more special. I still love the BMW 1 Series M. That's my favorite M car, one of my all-time favorite cars, but this is my favorite new BMW M car, and it's easy to see why. And now it's time to give this car a Doug score.
Not so fast there, Doug. The Doug score is 65 out of 100, and that actually places it ahead of the BMW 1 Series M I love so much. Ever since I drove the M2 Competition a couple of weeks ago for this video, I can't stop thinking about how much I loved it, and it might have just claimed the title of my all-time favorite BMW M car, but I need to think about it a bit more before I decide for sure, and maybe drive one a bit more, and maybe buy one. The M2 Competition is an amazing car, and it's the rightful successor to the similarly amazing 1 Series M.